All right, let's make some raw vegan wraps. First, you're gonna start with some bell peppers. Make sure it's really well combined. Once that's done, you're gonna add a couple tablespoons of psyllium husk, whole psyllium husk, and then you're gonna blend that again. Make sure it's really well combined, then spread it out on a non-stick baking sheet and spread it pretty thin, like you can see here. It's gonna thin out a lot, so make the edges a little bit thicker than you think might be necessary. And there you have it. Stuff it with your favorite veggies and enjoy.
What do you like in wraps?
I think it's like a fun way to eat a salad. I eat so many salads, and salads are really great. But I think experimenting with a raw wrap is just another way to eat a salad. And I also think making raw wraps, at least the way I do it, which are full of fruits and vegetables, it's a helpful way to get in more fruits and vegetables in a condensed package, right? When we dehydrate, we take something big and we make it small, and so it's really great in getting in more nutrition with less volume. So that's why I love them.
Yes, what ingredients do you like to make the sheet?
I normally stick with my favorite is a combination of tomatoes and bell peppers. And then I will switch out the herbs or the spices to make them different. So I'll do tomato, bell pepper, Italian seasoning to make like an Italian wrap, or tomato, bell pepper, cayenne to make it sort of a spicy wrap, or tomato, bell pepper, curry powder to make it sort of like a, curry wrap. So that's usually what I do, but I have lots of different wrap recipes with zucchini and carrot and so many different things, but my go-to is tomato, bell pepper.
Do you use chia seeds or flax seed in the wraps?
I prefer psyllium husk. So I use psyllium husk to bind. I like to keep it low fat for the wrap. And then I put like a nice avocado or a creamy, fatty sauce inside.
How do you like to fill the wrap?
So many different ways. I love a raw hummus, a good sprouted hummus, and just a bunch of veggies, whatever's growing in my garden or whatever's looking good at the grocery store, avocado, some type of green, some type of fresh herb. I mean, anything like a salad, right? Anything you can think of. I also really like to make raw burgers. So I have a chili burger recipe that I really like, or I have a beet burger recipe that I really like. And so sort of like laying a bed of greens and then putting a burger or two inside the wrap, whatever sort of sauce I want. And yeah, just whatever veggies I feel excited to eat. I've never made a bad wrap, just whatever veggies I feel excited about, it always comes together really well. It took me a little while to learn how to make the wraps in a way that I really like them. I experimented for quite a while, and so there was a learning curve to making the wrap itself. But as far as what I put inside the wrap, it's all good.
What would you say to someone who never made any wrap?
Be open to learning, right? Be open to the learning process. I often tell people that they're not the easiest thing, but not the hardest thing either, but they're also not the easiest thing to make. There can be, like I said, a little bit of a learning curve in learning how to spread them in a way that they come out really well. So you don't want them too thin, you don't want them too thick. With dehydrating things, we dehydrate from the outside in. That's how it works. And so learning to sort of make the outside edges a little bit thicker than the inside will allow it for a more even dehydration time. So just be okay with being in the process of learning and try it once. I have a video in my community showing you exactly how I do it. I have the recipes. I've done a lot to try to be as clear as possible. I often do demonstrations at my retreats on how to make raw wraps. But yeah, just keep practicing. Just keep practicing until you get it, and it'll be well worth the effort because they're so good.
What I really like, if I have a good recipe and the sheet doesn't work well, I can use the pieces in another way if I use good ingredients and it tastes good.
Totally. Yeah. You can just, I've messed up wraps sort of at times, and you just kind of like tear it up and put it on top of a salad, or just sort of use the little pieces to pick up a salad. So I've always found ways to salvage things.
You mentioned you have a garden.
Yeah, so I have a garden right now where I'm currently living. I'm not in a permanent location. I'm living somewhere that I'll be for a few years. But we grew all kinds of things over this summer. I just moved in last summer, and so over the year we grew watermelons. We planted a couple apple trees. We have some pawpaw seeds sprouting. We have kale and Swiss chard and cilantro and basil and parsley and sage and thyme and so many different things, lots of different greens and lots of different vegetables, tomatoes, bell peppers. And yeah, that's a big part of our life. We also, over the winter and summer, but particularly the winter when we can't be growing as much outside, we grow lots of sprouts, lots of microgreens indoors under our grow light. And so, yeah, that's part of our life is growing lots of our own food.
Is it different to eat your own food?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. The quality is very different to eat your own food. We have compost that my parents compost from a big compost pile that they've been feeding for years and years and years. And the soil is so good. It's so rich. So the food that we produce is not only amazing because we're growing it ourselves, but it's extraordinarily amazing because we're using the best kind of soil, the best soil that we've regenerated over the years. And so, yeah, the nutritional value is a lot higher and it's reflected in the taste, which is really, really cool.
Would you like to plant fruit trees?
Yeah, like I said, we planted a couple apple trees and we're going to plant a couple pawpaw trees. Yeah, I mean, I've lived all over. I lived in a permaculture community in Hawaii for a time. I lived in a permaculture community in Ecuador for a time. And so I'm familiar with growing lots of fruits and vegetables and sort of living that lifestyle. And that's important to us in one way or another. And so I can't say where we will ultimately end up with our garden and fruit trees, but we're just gonna keep doing what we can do in our little piece of land right now.
You said pawpaw, and it's a relative of cherimoya and rollinia and the other annonas. This is the only annona which grows in temperate climate, and I think it should be amazing.
That's one of my favorite groups of fruit. Rollinia is like up there at the very, very top for me, and pawpaw is as well. It's a truly amazing fruit. And I feel very fortunate to have it. I mean, I obviously don't get things like Rollinia here, but I do feel very fortunate to be able to have pawpaws when they're in season, and they're everywhere. We can go forage and the trees are everywhere and they're loaded. And yeah, it's an amazing fruit.
What is your favorite fruit?
Of course, that's a really hard question, right? Like that's a super, super hard question. But if I were to pick my favorite, I'm going to say banana because it's so versatile. You can use it in so many different ways. There's so many different varieties and it's so accessible. So if I had to choose one fruit to eat forever, that would be my favorite. I would choose a banana.
And what would you choose if you can choose any fruit and you can eat it now?
Probably Rollinia. I really, really love Rollinia. Yeah, probably Rollinia.
Rollinia is awesome. And it, if you plant it, it produces very early, like in 3 years from seed. So it's amazing.
I didn't know that. That makes me love it even more.
Yes. Okay. Would you like to share something about your experience in the permaculture communities? I mean, more about the time spending with plants and the permaculture aspect of it.
Yeah, I learned a lot, both those places that I mentioned, Hawaii and Ecuador, about growing fruit. I think one of the biggest things that I learned and that really changed me was abundance, just how insanely much fruit can be produced on a single tree. And that really, that really changed me just to realize how much is available. Truly, nature provides above and beyond. And it's amazing. Even growing a garden, even being here where I am right now, or the apple trees. There's apple trees everywhere here where I am. And it's the same thing. I walk by an apple tree and I just think that could feed the whole town. Like there's like thousands, thousands and thousands of apples on that tree. It's just unbelievable. And I'm just so amazed. And so there's ways that we can all grow food. And, you know, even planting one fruit tree or planting some microgreens in a little apartment, like it's a way. We all have ways where we can grow our own food and we can contribute to the abundance that nature is. And I think that's pretty special.
Does it feel good to take care of them?
Yeah, it does. It feels human. It feels like humans have been doing this all throughout history, right? We tend to plants because the plants nourish us. And so it feels really natural and rewarding to do so.
I love the abundance and the fruit tree connection. I love that we just plant one fruit tree, and of course we need to wait. But after we waited like 3, 5, 6 years, depending on the tree, it's just gives fruit for 100 years.
It's true. I know there's always so much. And yeah, there is a little bit of a waiting period. But that's okay. It's worth it. It's so worth the wait. It's such an amazing time to be alive. And nature has always been amazing. And it's amazing that we have access to so much.
In the tropics, we have fruits all the time. But to grow lettuce or greens or vegetables is challenging.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when I was living in Hawaii, I hardly ever ate a salad. It was just fruit. I just ate fruit. And now I eat so many more salads, and I love salads. I think that focus is really cool to appreciate what we do have where we are, because I think a lot of times people can feel like the tropics are the best place to be, and they are amazing. Like, if you want to move to the tropics or live in the tropics, that's such an awesome choice. But I also want people to acknowledge and appreciate the opportunities that they have where they're at. Like the ability to grow lettuce more easily in Pennsylvania as opposed to Hawaii or Costa Rica or wherever. And so, yeah, just always focusing on what we have available and what's opportunistic in front of us feels like a really healthy mindset to have.
Yes, I agree. If we put our energy in what grows here very well, then we will have a crazy abundance.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Focusing on what's native or what grows with ease. Yeah, it's like it's working with the environment.
Yes. And do you think it worth the time and the effort that we put in a fruit forest to plant fruit trees and then just wait?
Yeah, I think it's totally worth the effort. And I think it's also kind of a cool life analogy, right? Like we put in the work with whatever it is, whether it's growing fruit or relationships or a business or whatever. And sometimes we just have to wait, right? Sometimes we just wait and we nurture and we water these really beautiful big things that we've done, and that's just part of life, right? And I think nature is a really good reflection on that. It takes time and it has its own process. And part of our job is to be patient, right? But it is so worth it. It's so worth it. Whatever your thing is that you're waiting for. Yeah, what could be more amazing than a bunch of fruit trees dripping with ripe organic fruit when the time comes? I mean, that's the dream.
It is. What I like to do in the food forest, that I work on a spot, a place, and then I leave it and I don't look back for a few months, because if I leave that spot there and I just go back in 1-2 months, it's amazing how things are growing out.
Yeah. I often remind myself and say to my clients and my community to zoom out 3 months or 6 months or a year or 5 years. And we're like, whoa, everything is different, right? Like, look how much change has occurred. A tree that you planted 3 months ago will look different.
I planted a lot of noni trees, like 20 of them 2 months ago. And the biggest one is already fruiting.
Wow, that one wants to grow. It wants to give forth life. That's really cool. That's super fast.
You talk about the permaculture communities, and do you think it's a good way to start a new growing kind of life, to spend some time in a community like this?
I learned so much living in those communities. They were permaculture communities and also raw vegan communities. And so I learned a lot about raw food, how to prepare raw food, how to eat a raw vegan diet, how to grow fruit. I learned a lot of different things in both of those places.
We just settled down in a remote place. We chose this because we find that this place is amazing and perfect and optimal to grow those things what we want to grow, especially durian. That is our focus, but where durian grows, a lot of things grow.
I'm sure once you have tons of durian, everyone will want to come to be there.
Yes.
But yeah, I love that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think, yeah, focusing on the growing of fruit right now is an amazing priority. It's an amazing choice. And yeah, different seasons and different priorities for different seasons of life.